We have several visitors, which is must be a good draw. We're going to hear all about climbing New Hampshire's 4,000 footers tonight by an expert here, Jeannie Davenhall. And if you haven't looked at our blog that Stan has so nicely put online, why, because Jeannie's on there in living color with her biography. I'll just tell you a little bit about her. She not only does hiking, but skiing, alpine, Nordic, and water skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, kayaking, running, and bicycling. She skied Tuckerman's Ravine. She snowmobiled around the Gaspé Peninsula in the winter time, 1,700 miles. She's run up Mount Washington in the road race. I don't know, a few other little things, but I don't expect to give her any competition at all. But I think you're going to enjoy this talk. So, Jeannie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dawn. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'd like to, first of all, introduce my faithful hiking companion, Ava. And then I'll send her off into the crowd so she can visit. Ava has done a lot of hiking with me since she was a puppy. She's climbed about 22 of the 4,000 footers, so I'm probably going to have to continue around again to get all 48 for her. But this is Ava, and I'd like to thank the Historical Society and Dottie for inviting me. I want to encourage your comments and questions while I'm talking. I'm a hiker, I'm not a speaker. I want to talk with you, not to you. So please feel free to interject at any time. You won't offend me at all. Hiking is one of my very favorite things to do and to talk about. Dottie invited me to come and tell you about my recent accomplishment of climbing all 48 of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers. The 4,000 footers are comprised of a list of mountains that meet one criteria is they have to be at least 4,000 feet in elevation. There are over 60 mountains in New Hampshire that reach at least 4,000 feet, but only 48 of them make the list because one of the main criteria is the col, or the valley between two mountains, has to descend and rise again at least 200 feet for those mountains to be considered, or you're not really descending and ascending again. The 4,000 Footer Club is a club that you join on the honor system after climbing all 48, and you keep track, like I said, just on your honor. They send you a little list in the mail after you complete, and you just fill in the date that you climbed it, and your hiking companions, if any, and your comments, and that's all it takes. They believe you. So
You started the 4,000.
the 4,000. No, the 4,000 Footer Club was started by, I believe it was a librarian at Dartmouth College back in the 1930s. And at that point, I think there was only 36 4,000 footers. And then as technology advanced over the years, we grew some mountains. I think altimeters got more precise and trails became more prevalent in the mountains as we approached the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where a lot of these peaks were so remote that nobody climbed them. You know, some of them were so deep in the wilderness that there's a couple on the list that you know you're ready to complete your 4,000 footers when you've checked Owl's Head and Isolation off your list, because they are the hikes from, oh, I didn't even go there. Well, I did go there, actually. There are all kinds of variations that people have put a little spin on this 4,000 Footer Club. And some of the funny ones I thought you'd get a kick out of. The Duratissima, which is the most direct route from the base to the summit of all 48, is actually 244 miles if you hike it. There is an editor of the AMC guide, which is our hiking Bible. We don't go anywhere without it. He did 12 rounds of the 4,000 footers in every month of the year. Not the same year, but he did them 12 times. There's a man from the Adirondack Mountains in New York who did all of the 48 4,000 footers at night, and then he did them at night in the winter, which is a whole other ballgame, winter hiking. I'll talk about that too. In 1999, a man from Wanalancet summited all the peaks at midnight. He approached all the peaks at midnight. The speed record was set by two brothers, aged 15 and 17, in 1973, in 6 days, 15 hours. Now, later on tonight, I'll tell you how long it took me, so that's a pretty impressive number. And in 1991, 3 college kids decided they were going to be funny. They did it in 8 days, 250 miles, carrying only Oreos, Pop-Tarts, bananas, and Gatorade. I didn't do that. Then the all-time speed record, which is pretty fantastic, is a man named Ted Kaiser. He's an ultra-marathoner. He did them in 3 days, 17 hours, and 21 minutes, which is just absolutely amazing. The 4,000 Footer Club has approximately 8,000 members. Approximately 200 members are dogs. It was begun, like I said, in 1930 by a Dartmouth College professor. As we know it today, it came about in about 1956 with more mountains, and the list grew to 48. Another interesting fact, the most, excuse me, ma'am. Somebody came in. The most 4,000 footers that you can see is 43 when you're on the peak of Mount Washington and Mount Kerrigan, which is kind of interesting. The fewest you can see is 8 from the top of Mount Moriah. The lowest 4,000 footer is 4,003 feet, which is Mount Tecumseh, where Waterville Valley is. You can see 36 peaks from that mountain. So the views are so different from all the different mountains. The second highest of the presidentials, Mount Adams, which is 5,774 feet, you can only see 31 other peaks because of its tall neighbors. A lot of them are hidden. And there are actually 7 peaks that I climbed that had no view at all, which is torture. It's like that's your reward. Once you get to the top, it's like you just sit and enjoy the view. Yes?
Can you tell me what the significance is of the 4,000? Is where that fits in the range? Is there a lesser range or a higher climbing height, or what's the...
No, I think it's just a starting point for the higher summits in the White Mountains. There's a lot of different lists that people work on. There's the New England 100 highest, which includes a lot of the I keep wanting to say 48,000 footers. A lot of the 4,000 footers and some of the ones that don't qualify. So it's just the 4,000 footer club was just the highest peaks in the White Mountains. So I think that's the significance there. And since we are at the Historical Society, I thought I'd just give you a little bit of interesting history of the White Mountains. The first ascent of Mount Washington, believe it or not, was done by a man named Darby Field with 2 Indian guides in 1642. That surprised me when I read that. Then into the late 1700s and early 1800s, when the white settlers came into the Mount Washington Valley area, a lot of the names of those early settlers are still prevalent today. The Crawfords were one of the first pioneering families in the White Mountains. They were kind of credited with the start of tourism. They built a couple of hostels and hotels and encouraged people to come and breathe the fresh air of the mountains. They built the Crawford House, which is not there any longer. I think that burned back in the 20s. And that was the beginning of the era of the grand hotels, when people used to take the trains up to the mountains, you know, the Mount Washington Hotel, the Bretton Woods Hotel, the Balsams, and that era. The man who was the first, I don't know if you've ever seen the sign for Camp Dodge up in Pinkham Notch. Well, I was curious as to what Camp Dodge was. It was always something funny my husband said when we drove by there, Camp Dodge. So what is Camp Dodge? Well, Joe Dodge was the first manager of the hut system. Have any of you heard of the hut system in the White Mountains? There's a string of 9 huts, wilderness huts, high elevation huts that were built for camping, and they're tended in the summer for hikers to come in, and you can get for a nominal fee. Well, it's not so nominal anymore, actually. It's very expensive to get a hot meal and to dry out, and they have bunks you can sleep in. And there are 9 huts in the White Mountains today. And I don't know if any of you realize that the presidential range in the White Mountains is named in order of presidents. The first is the highest, and it goes right down. So that's kind of an interesting fact. In the 1800s, then came the railroads, like I said, and the grand hotels. And this was the time that a lot of trails and bridle paths were starting to pop up in the mountains. Waterville Valley was one of the first places that had quite an intricate trail system for their guests to go out and hike. And they began in the mid-1800s was when they began really starting to network the trails in the White Mountains. Now, the AMC was founded, the Appalachian Mountain Club was founded in 1876. In the last 30 years of the 1800s, there was a lot of exploration into the White Mountains, and a lot of botanists and scientists and explorers were going in to really check the landscape out. And there was an infamous logger from Lincoln by the name of Henry, J.H. Henry, who did a lot of clear cutting back in the 1920s and 30s. And he built a lot of tote roads and timber roads to haul the timber out of the White Mountains. And in around 1903 was one of the most devastating fires that was started up there in the mountains due to the clear cutting and the slash that was left on the ground. So in 1911, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Weeks Act, but it was the successful lobbying of the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. They successfully lobbied to have, now as it stands, the White Mountain National Forest was created. And does anybody have any idea how big the White Mountain National Forest is? How many acres? It's 780,000 acres. And 115,000 of that is still today untouched wilderness area, which I think is just fantastic. The mid-30s brought the real unification of the trail systems, and hiking and vacationing was starting to become very popular with the popularity of automobiles. People didn't need the trains and as much, so the grand hotels kind of fell to the wayside, and people started driving up to the mountains. Hiking surged in the 1960s and 70s. It really became kind of what it is today. And that brought on the ethic that the AMC promotes. It's called Leave No Trace. And that is just what it means what it says. When you go in, walk lightly and leave no trace. Carry out what you carry in. Some of the little common sense and courtesy things that we do when we hike. You always want to stay on the trail. You don't want to disturb vegetation off the trail or animal habitats. And that goes for your four-legged hiking partners too. And we do make her stay on the trail with us, which is very hard for her some days when the red squirrels chirp at her. You don't want to pick the flowers. You want to limit the size of your groups. They ask you not to hike in groups of more than 10. I don't know who would ever want to. You'd never make any progress. You kind of need to keep your group in, your own ability, You want to keep your dog under control. Keep them leashed if you need to. Ava is a dog that is not leashed, I'm proud to say. She's a great little hiker. She stays right with me. And I feel that leashing my dog, in my opinion, is dangerous to the dog and is dangerous to me. There's a lot of steep and rocky areas where the dog you can see her stop and think. You know, she'll step back and kind of pick her way up over rocks and things, and I just feel it's much safer for her, more fun for her too, and she doesn't bother anybody. You need to camp at least 200 feet off the trail or in designated camping areas. They don't allow you to just, you know, walk off the trail and set up. And when nature calls, you want to just make sure you're not near any streams or water at all. Now, I am your ultimate fair weather hiker. I love to hike. I've done a lot of hiking. I have no interest in hiking in the rain or hiking in, you know, adverse conditions or my hiking season generally runs from around Memorial Day, if the bugs aren't too bad, sometimes the bugs are too bad, to around Columbus Day, when the days start getting shorter. That becomes a big concern, heading up into the mountains. You really, I was just saying, I think I said to Norma and Natalie, the last thing you want is trail ahead of you and daylight behind you. It's just, it's not a good thing. It's dangerous and it's, yes?
When you do these hikes, what is the average time it takes you to do one of these 4,000?
That's an excellent question.
What do you do for food, besides Oreos, bananas?
And Pop-Tarts. I will answer that in about 2 minutes, okay? In the early spring, choosing to do a hike up in the mountains in the early spring is kind of tricky because, you know, down here the lilacs are blooming and the crocuses are come and gone, and you get up to the mountains and, oh my Lord. 3 weeks ago, Tom and I headed up into Maine, up into Grafton Notch. One of our favorite little mountains is the Ziskahouse Mountain. And it was a short sleeve day. I didn't have this shirt on, but you know, light pants and summer boots and the puppy dog, and we're ready to go. We got about an hour into the hike and we started, it's called post-holing, in the deep snow on the trail in the shade. I mean, we were holing up to our thighs. So, and it was beautiful 70 degrees down below. So we turned back, and that's another thing. We're never afraid to turn back. I'm not proud. A couple of mountains took me a couple of tries to get to the top. Then the fall brings shorter days, like I said, and trails get icy early. When you need to get out early in the morning to get the daylight, the trails are normally pretty icy, you know, where it's frozen overnight. So you don't want to do that. And when you're choosing a hike, you want to consider, there's a lot of considerations. I have the same group that I hike with a lot. We're all pretty much the same ability. We're all game to do a long hike, a short hike, a through hike, you know. But if you have people that you're not sure what their ability is, you want to choose your hike accordingly. You know, you don't want to say, hey, let's just go climb Mount Washington today. You know, because there's a lot of really nice hikes that are less strenuous and less dangerous. You want to consider the weather for the day, the fitness of the group. In the spring, a huge consideration is stream crossings. There's no little footbridges out there. And I've been wet many times. I carry a towel. I've taken my shoes off and rolled my pants up many times, which always gets me arousing because Tom says I should be able to pick my way across the street. It's like, no, I don't like wet boots for the rest of the day, so I'll just freeze my feet for a few minutes. The rule of thumb, to answer your question, is we figure, according to, you know, information given to us in the guidebooks, 2 miles per hour, adding a half an hour for every 1,000 feet of elevation that you're going to gain, and then consider the weight of your pack, and consider if you're a man or a woman. A man can normally carry about 25% of his weight in a pack, and a woman can normally carry about 15. I tend to be a little stronger. I carry a heavier pack. It doesn't really bother me, but that's a big consideration. And you always want to leave an itinerary. I do. I leave something on the kitchen counter in case we don't make it back. At least someone will know, you know, what I try to, you know, say what mountain we're going to, what trail we're going to do, just in case. Better safe than sorry. And then in my pack, for a regular day hike in the White Mountains, you know, for moderate temperature, you know, maybe like a day like today, and you can figure it's probably going to be 10 to 20 degrees cooler at the summit than it is on the bottom. And factor in the wind chill, it's going to be a lot colder. I carry a couple of quarts of water, and I carry a little extra for Ava, and I carry a collapsible water bowl for her, because I'm always afraid there's not going to be streams when she needs it. So, depending on the season, that's how much water I carry. Carry a lunch, which usually is your trusty old peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Energy food and snacks, I like a protein bar, I like a V8, I always have a V8 in my pack. I always have fruit, because I find fruit not only, it quenches your hunger, but it satisfies your hunger, it quenches your thirst too.
Always apples.
Oh, yeah, apples. And I like a banana. When I feel my blood sugar drop in the morning, I like a banana. In my pack, I learned the hard way, not carrying my map and book. I counted on a hiking companion, and we ended up lost, which was a very, very, very long day. And I was not very cheerful. But that's another story. So I learned I never go anywhere without my book. It stays in this pack. It never even comes out of that pack. I like to have a first aid kit, which consists of, Band-Aids for blisters, a needle for splinters, some ibuprofen or whatever. Duct tape is something we always carry. I worry about Ava cutting her feet or hurting her feet, and duct tape is a good, she wouldn't keep a bandage on, so you can stick the duct tape to a dog's paws if you need to. A compass, a watch, a flashlight, bug spray this time of year. You'll notice that's on the outside of my pack, always. Toilet tissue for nature's calls, matches, a camera, binoculars, bandanas, a cell phone today in this day and age. So your pack ends up, a couple ounces here and a couple ounces there, and then you put it on and it's like, wow, do I really need all this? And I always carry extra clothes. I like, this happens to be made by LL Bean. It's a Polar Tech fleece. It's windproof and waterproof. It's lightweight. It's warm at around 35 to 40 degrees. My winter boots, which are pretty much on their way out. These are so old, but it's so hard to part with boots. Those are my winter boots, and these are my Old Faithful. These completed most of the 48 4,000 footers. I saved them last year to do the last 20 miles. There's duct tape on the inside, and the sole's about gone. They're very sentimental to me. They carried me a long way.
Or something?
I don't know.
On top of some
I'm going to
mountain?
bronze them for bookends. And then when we're on the trail, I try to set a pace. In the morning, it usually takes me half, 3/4 of an hour to get my breath and stop thinking, why am I doing this? This is fun. Why? As you're, heavy and sweaty and chilly and cold, and so you just try to set a pace and stick with it. Pay attention, especially above tree line, when you're in the big mountains, in the presidentials. When you get above tree line, there are markers called cairns, C-A-I-R-Ns. They're made with rocks. They're like pyramids made of rocks. So when the fog rolls in, you can see they're about 100 feet apart. So you can follow cairns. And at trail junctions, you always want to pay very close attention to the signage. Not that I've ever gone the wrong way and gone down Mount Garfield, say maybe a half hour in the wrong direction and had to climb back up, but I've done that. Interestingly, for me to complete my 4,000 footers, I quickly one day went through my book and tried to remember the different trails. I walked 359 miles to complete mine, and a lot of them we did. I think that when I looked at the hikes that I had marked in my book, I think I've climbed about 120 different mountains that are in my book that I can remember. That doesn't count the Blue Job and the Mount Jesse and the Chesley that we do all the time. And a lot of the mountains that we climbed, we've done over and over again. So, my list, I've done the 48 4,000 footers, but I've done Mount Lafayette and Mount Lincoln probably 6 times. Done Mount Washington a few times. I've done, you keep doing your favorite ones and the most beautiful ones. When someone wants to go hiking and they haven't done that mountain, well, I'll do it again. So that's how I've come to complete. And this brings me to the reason that I'm here. All that talking to the reason I'm here. Last September, Tom and I, we'd been threatening that we were going to finish this list. And all summer long, we trained for it. Our final hike was going to be the Bonds. It's a group of mountains in the Pemigewasset Wilderness. It's a very remote hike, and we had done all of our 4,000 footers on day hikes. We've never tented over. And there were some long ones. There were a couple that were close to 20 miles. So we had it in our mind that we were going to do this last trip on a day hike. So about 3:45 in the morning, we got up, packed the car, and headed out about 4 a.m. We got up to Twin Mountain, the trailhead at Zealand Campground up by Brettonwood ski area. We drove in as far as we could drive, and we got on the trail about 45 minutes before it got light. And we headed up to the first mountain we hit was Zealand, which was my 45th 4,000 footer. And that was very exciting that day. I kept thinking, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to finally do it. So we got up to Zealand, we got up to the hut, and Zealand is one of the mountains that has no view. So you walk down this plank through this mucky, marshy, muddy area about a half a mile, and there's a sign in a tree. I have a picture on here, I'll show you. Zealand. We're like, all right, well, onward. Turned around and headed down the trail to Mount Gio, which is a big 4,000 footer. I think it's pushing 5,000 feet actually. And it doesn't count because it doesn't drop low enough from Zealand. So we get up on top of Gio and we're like, okay, well, we're getting there. And then we headed off down the Boncliff Trail. Using my spot here, Zealand to Gio, to the Boncliff Trail, sorry, to the summit of West Bond. And West Bond is a very remote peak. That one we were out about a little over 7 miles into the wilderness by the time we hit West Bond. And that's off the trail, it's a mile out to the summit and a mile back. So that was number 46, getting very, very excited. And then back up the Boncliff Trail to Mount Bond. And that was one of the most spectacular views. I'll show you some pictures of that too. Just absolute beautiful wilderness all around. And the day that we chose was a perfect blue sky hiking day with shorts and t-shirts. We didn't need any of our extra gear or anything. It was just fabulous. And then we headed across the Boncliff Trail to the summit of Boncliff, which was our final, our 48 4,000 footer. So at that point, we were 9.9 miles in. We were halfway in, and then we still had to go down and out to the Kankamangas Highway from there. But we really hoofed it kind of hard in the morning. We wanted to have some time to sit on top and enjoy the experience and enjoy the day and let this one just curl up like she is right there. She hikes the mountain twice. She's up and back and up and back. So these, I'm going to show you some of the photos that we took that day, and I hope you enjoy them.
You ever bothered by wild animals?
Nothing too horrible other than a porcupine, but it didn't bother me. It got my girl the other day.
Playback mode.
Oops. Okay. Okay, this was, I'm going to start us at Zealand Campground in the morning. This was heading up into Zealand Notch. It was just starting to get light.
Maybe shut the lights down.
Oh, it's up to you.
Somebody want to turn the lights down?
Certainly, miss. How's that? Better yet? Yeah.
at the Zealand Falls Hut. We made it there at about 7:10 in the morning. Could smell the pancakes and bacon cooking. And that was the sun just coming up over the Zealand Falls Hut. And that's Zealand Falls.
What was the month?
It was September 18th. And that's my husband, Tom. He hiked his first 4,000 footer in 1968. And the clouds are just rising out of the notch there. It's really pretty. So remote.
That's beautiful.
So close but so far away. Yeah.
I feel like you're
It's a little sweaty. And this was a spruce grouse on the trail. A spruce grouse. I think there's a couple better pictures of it. There it is. So I guess there was wildlife, Prisco. I forgot about that. And there's Zealand and the view. That's it. And we're lucky the sign was there. On those remote peaks, the signs are stolen a lot. Owl's Head in Zealand and some of the isolation. And that was me snapping the picture. Very becoming. And this was heading across the summit of Gio. It's really not much of a hike up.
You carry the compass?
See, and I was like, well, this is it. And this is what the trail looks like. It's just through the scrub. It's beautiful.
You always carry the compass with you?
Yes, we
Never
do.
get lost?
No, we pay attention to the trail pretty much. Yeah.
Well, Ava could probably find.
Oh, Ava's amazing. She puts her nose down and she goes. The bonds, this trip has always been like an enigma to me. I just really wanted it so badly, and I always wondered if I'd ever be able to do it, because that list is long, I'll tell you. And it this is from Mount Bond, looking over at Bond Cliff. So we walked this ridge over. And it was just very, very extremely emotional for me when we started up the cliff on Bond. It was just amazing. This is looking out toward Twin Mountain area. Pretty happy there. That's the summit of West Bond, and we're heading over to these cliffs. These are called the Cliffs of Bond. You can see it was just a beautiful day. I mean, it's unheard of to sit on, well, I put my jacket on there, but once you cool off a little, it's chilly, but. Huh? Just as far as your eyes can see, it's just mountains. This is Mount Garfield, which is up on Route 3 between the Franconia, what's it called? Franconia Notch and Crawford Notch.
No houses and no power.
Nothing. No, you can see some of the pictures. You can see the ski trails at Loon Mountain, and you can see the towers on Mount Washington. Isn't it beautiful? Just beautiful. That's a cairn. And they're every so many feet to keep you. Now there are this is the summit of West Bond, and we met two boys hiking that day. We leapfrogged them all day, and they ended up taking my camera and letting us hike back to the cliffs, and they took some pictures for us. It was nice, really nice. There's one spot where you can see them, but we must have passed it. Nice young boys. They were about 20 years old, doing the same trip that we were doing. Shaky camera. I don't know what happened there, but this is still the summit of Mount Bond. Number 47. This is the Franconia Ridge, Mount Lafayette, Lincoln, Haystack, and then Fluke. Look at that picture of me with a cell phone. That's a disgrace. I was texting somebody saying we made it. There's the two boys coming down off the ridge there. Yeah.
Quite a trip.
There it is. And look at old Shaggy Doo Ava. Look at the mud on her. Mount Garfield, that's a beautiful hike. That just sticks right out there. There's my girl.
Does she enjoy the view?
I think she does, I do. There's one picture of her in here. She looks like she's saying, but I'm tired. This one? Look at her feet, she's frowning. And we're going all the way over there.
Oh my goodness. They said, when are they going to quit?
Yeah. Are we there yet? Oh, I was very, very excited at that point. We had about 2 miles to go. Tom kept the camera. And right around this area, Ava and I took a break, and there were 2 ravens playing in the wind. And I think there's a picture of her in here. She and I were both watching them. She was actually just following them, flying in the wind. It was so cute.
They were vultures.
Nope, they were ravens. Yeah, they were sizing her up. I said, oh, look at that skinny poodle down there. Oh, there, I think it's one of these pictures. It's very rocky, yeah.
You ever fall down?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I fall down on a regular basis, yeah. I've been blown down twice.
Really?
There's the cliffs of Bond Cliff.
Wow.
That's quite a picture.
I'm right there. You can kind of not really see it. But those rocks are huge. It looks like we're near the edge, but we're really not. I mean, they're huge. Isn't it funny how they're all squared? You know, how they're all even? This book that I have that I read a lot, The 4,000 Footers of the White Mountains, it has a section on each mountain, and it will have a history, the nomenclature. Yeah, there's Tom. And it will also have a geologic description of, you know, what kind of rocks and things. It's interesting. Yeah. This is looking out toward Twin Mountain again. This is the summit of Owl's Head. That's one of the most remote mountains. It's like a cone that sits in the middle of the Pemigewasset Wilderness. You get up near the top of Owl's Head and you climb up some ledges, and I was crying there. I made it. Woo-hoo. Number 48, Tears of Joy. But on the top of Owl's Head, there's actually a natural spring that bubbles out of the rock, just like a bubbler. And it's potable. You can bend down and drink it. It's neat. There's the family.
Amy, you did it.
Nice man there, took pictures for us. Sweet. I'm enjoying this. I'm reliving it. I haven't looked at this in a long time. And there we are out on the cliff. We hiked back down about a quarter of a mile, half a mile, and gave those boys our camera. you're going with me if you push. For dear life. And there's Loon Mountain, the ski trail. And that was kind of disturbing when we're standing there thinking we have to walk to that. That was a long walk out of there. And the last 4.7 miles are on a railroad bed, but the railroad ties haven't been removed, so you walk up and over, walk up. It was worse than the climb. It was very tiring. It was at that point that I dumped my extra water. I put my air pillow insoles in my boots. There it is. See, you can see this. Yeah, that was a long. I'm ready to go home. I love that picture there.
Are those like old logging roads, are they?
Yes, that is exactly. Yep. Out into the Penry wilderness. And that, my friends, is it. So thank you so much for taking the time and listening.
Is Mount Washington on that list?
It is, Roger.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are those trails open?
The AMC maintains most of the trail system. A lot of volunteers do trail work on different sections. There are different hiking clubs in different areas that put groups together to go out, after an ice storm or a windstorm. And when you're out hiking, if you see a blowdown and you can move it, you just do it. Yeah. So, yes.
Just two more questions. You mentioned you have a cell phone with you. Do you carry one of those things like the skiers use, a locator signal?
No,
or
I don't.
nothing like that?
No, I do not.
And you mentioned...
Like an ELT, they have electronic locator transmitters. I don't hike much in avalanche terrain or anything, so I don't. I'm kind of like a dead reckoning pilot, I like this right here. This is what I go by. And what I do when I do a hike, I will take this map, or whatever map it is, and I will blow up on my photocopier the section that I'm going to be using, so that I can just wrinkle it up and stuff it in my pocket, and which is like what I've done here. See this one? I just copy it, and then I don't ruin my maps. This was the Bonds trip, so I just fold it up and stick it in my pocket, and then I don't have to keep taking my maps out. That's just one little trick that I do. And I always carry my glasses because they just don't make the maps big enough anymore.
4,000 foot, that's a reference to feet above sea level?
Yes.
What is the average distance that you're actually walking to get to that 4,000 feet?
Well, that's a very good question. Up at the height of land in Jefferson Notch Road, you can drive to 3,000 feet on a 5,500 footer. So you've got 2,000 feet of elevation gain to get to the summit, but the trail is 2 miles. So you're gaining 1,000 feet in elevation per mile. And at the end of that day, it feels like you've been shot in the knees. It's very, very steep.
But that's not cheating that you can drive 3,000 miles and then just find the last.
No, it's not cheating at all. But it is cheating. You do have to summit from the trailhead on your feet. You can, like Lincoln Woods, that last 5 miles, wouldn't it have been splendid to have a bicycle? You can't. Mount Washington, I ran the Mount Washington road race several years ago, and I ran from the parking lot to the summit.
Wow.
But I got a ride down, so I couldn't check it off my list. So you have to walk up and walk down. Yeah, no sleds or bicycles or.
Yeah, done it.
Pardon me?
Time-wise, how?
I have done it, yes, I have. Pardon me?
Time-wise, how long does it take you?
You mean hours,
Yeah.
like in a day? It depends on the hikes. Like this 19.7 mile hike took us 12 hours, which isn't too bad. Some of them maybe take 6 or 7 hours, Just depends, like Mount Garfield is a fairly simple hike, it's 10 miles, but it's mostly tote road until you get to the last quarter of a mile up the summit cone. So that one, my sister and I did that in maybe 6 hours or so. So it doesn't take, it just depends. And I've done a lot of my hikes summiting 2 or 3 at a time, which is a lot of fun because you can do a nice loop. And a lot of times you'll have to spot a car, which is what we did on this trip. My sister was kind enough to, we parked my car at Zealand Campground and left the key, and gave her a key the night before, and she and her husband drove up to Zealand Campground, picked my car up, and they both drove across to the Kankamangas and parked my car at Lincoln Woods. So when we got done, they put a cooler in the back and everything with water. So that was really nice to get down there. And those boys that took pictures for us, they had done the same thing. They had spotted a car, so they sat with us and had a cold beverage afterwards, and we chatted about the day. So.
How many people go with you sometimes on trips?
Well, the other day, there were 7 of us went on a trip. We hiked the Belknap Range. We parked over on Bickford Road in Guilford, and we spotted a car and walked from Guilford to Mount Major over in Alton. 7 of us did that, which is a lot of fun. Seven of us that get along really well. So for a while, I'll walk with, Lois. She and I will chat for a while, and Tom will walk with Dottie, and then the partners
Not
just
this
kind of
Dottie.
switch up. And, so that's fun. But normally we like 2 or 3. I like to go, just, Tom and I enjoy going. We just do our own thing, And you've always we have one friend that hikes with us that's very fast, so Bob hikes by himself and then we chase him. That's what happens with him. But, it just depends. Whoever you can round up, to go.
Now you got them all done, you gonna go again?
Roger, I told you I'd let you in on my secret when I was through. You know how long it took me to do this? 19 years. But like I said, we kept, I've done a lot of them many times, but.
Yep.
And it took Tom longer than that though, because he started in 1968. And actually, do you all know Dave Roberts from Farmington?
Yes.
Tom credits Mr. Roberts with taking him on. He climbed Mount Osceola, his very first hike. That was his first 4,000 footer. And he's been hiking ever since.
Yep.
Yeah. Dave Roberts has done a lot of wonderful, wonderful trail work around this area. He's mapped the whole Belknap Range. In fact, this map here, Dave did. It is just absolutely phenomenal. He has done the hiking trails, and he's listed all the interesting natural and historic features. If you look at all of this map, is all little codes in here, and there's different colors, and they all mean different things. And this is the legend on the back. It is amazing. This is the trip we did the other day with 7 of us. And you walk along with the map, and you can see an old cross-cut saw stuck in a tree. There's boulder caves. There's an old quarry. It's just amazing, all the things. He did most of it bushwhacking. A lot of this is Boy Scout land.
I was up at the Mount Washington Hotel one day, and I was looking through a book, and he had done a forward to the book.
Really?
Yeah.
He's amazing. One day we were up climbing Mount Clem up in the Belknap Range, and we were talking about Mr. Roberts and how wonderful he was, and he's such a nice man. He's worked so hard. Swear to God, stack of Bibles. We came down off of Mount Clem, and who was standing there?
David.
He was standing there. It's like, oh my God. So we had the pleasure of hiking out with him that day. He's just somebody who's like my hiking idol. He just knows everything. He can tell you the bird that's calling, what the name of the bird is, and what the flower is, and it's just amazing. It's fun to go with them. So, yes. I saw someone else with the
Yes, well, I just wanted to ask those watching the pictures, it looks so isolated. What would happen, like, if one of you got seriously hurt and was not able to walk out, like, what would you do?
What would I do? I spend a lot of time thinking about that. Well, you would have to, somebody would have to go and somebody would have, well, obviously the hurt person would have to stay. When there's just two of you, we could, in that area, when you're at the last summit, you're 10 miles either direction, 9.7 and 9.9. There's a hut. I would have probably, in that instance, I would have hiked back up and over the three mountains in between and gone to the hut. I think that would have been the quickest way to get help, rather than try to get out into Lincoln. But you'd just have to call in rescue. And you better hope that you're prepared when the Fish and Game comes in on a rescue. They don't take kindly anymore to people heading up with just a cell phone thinking that they're going to be okay.
How's the
They're
reception?
going to check you. Reception's pretty good until you get way up north, and then you get into Canadian service, and you really don't have, I mean, I think you could get through if you had to, but yeah. So I did bring a packed backpack, if anyone's interested in just taking a look or feeling it, you know, it's got everything except peanut butter sandwich. I forgot to make the sandwich. Yeah, and feel free if you want to take a look. This is actually a couple of things to show you. This is the shirt that you get to purchase when you climb the 48, and there's the list of the mountains on there. Which is, as you can see, this is Tom's, and he hasn't worn his. He's very shy about it. He'll wear it. And then this is a picture, I'll pass this around. This is a picture of the cliffs. And this is, I believe it or not, I did document every hike. I don't know what made me do it back in 1991 when I started, but I do have a picture of every hike in here. So if you'd like to see that, you can see how the fashion has changed over the years. I go from the purple spandex to and this is a fun day pack that I use when I'm just doing something quick, like Mount Jesse or Blue Job or something. Just big enough to put a little sandwich in and a couple of bottles of water, and it just goes around the waist. So this one is a handy one. Yeah, so that's it. Yes, Joanne.
I read an article that said can't let hikes cut the margins off their maps, so it's left white.
Oh my gosh, I'm not
But
that
I noticed
bad.
you didn't do that.
No.
You might
But-
try.
Yeah,
Favor.
yeah. Well, there's a lot that I could do to my pack for less weight, but then I'm always afraid, you know, like, what if I take the duct tape out and I need the duct tape? What if I take the Advil out and I need the Advil? So like I said, I always end up with a fairly heavy pack.
Have you ever had a sprain or something that gave you trouble? Either you or Tom?
No,
All
no,
that
I haven't. Nope, I've fallen a few times. The third attempt that I made a couple of years ago, well, over the years, on my third try, I finally made it to the summit of Mount Adams. We got turned back. Once we got turned back for weather. Once I wimped out because I had a blister, and we were on the top of Mount Madison. And the summit of Mount Adams is like right there. It's just right there. My feet hurt so bad. And Tom was just disgusted with me that day. I said, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. So I turned to her. He said, you're going to have to do this whole mountain again. But the third time that we attempted, the wind was hellacious. It was awful. We came up the side, the airline trail up the side of King Ravine, and the wind was whipping up through King Ravine. And I literally got knocked on my butt twice by the wind. That was kind of a scary day. Ava was scared that day. A couple of times, the friend that I hiked with had already summited Mount Adams, so he stayed back and held Ava, not a little bit above tree line, but still in the rocks. And I left my heavy pack and scrambled up, got to the summit like, okay, I did it, back down. But that was a rough day that day. She was scared. Another hike that she had trouble on, she was younger, it was like in 2004, we climbed Mount Flume. And that, if you're picturing going up through Franconia Notch, Flume is a very pointed, rocky colored mountain. And we went up a trail called the Flume Slide Trail. It's where the mountain has slid off, and it's just granite. It's just literally a slide. And she does really, really well on the rocks until we got to the steep part, and we literally I had to climb ahead, and my friend Dave Monroe was with us, and we would put her on the slide, and he would lay on the rock and hold his feet in his hands, and she would put her hind feet in his hands and then come up to me. But I wasn't sure we were going to make it that day. She was a little nervous doing
You ever
that.
put booties on?
No, I don't. I put boots on her in the winter because she gets bad snowballs.
Yeah, you don't climb in the winter.
I don't really climb.
Have you ever gotten caught in the snowstorm or anything like that?
Yeah. We've gotten, not a bad snowstorm, but fall snows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotten soaked. Soaking wet. The day that we climbed Mount Isolation, that was another long trip. That's about a 17-mile trip out through, as you're going up Pinkham Notch toward Mount Washington, there's a parking lot on the left called Rocky Branch, and you start at Rocky Branch and you go over this ridge called the Montalban Ridge, and there's a lot of river crossings there. And it was October 3rd, we did that trip. It had snowed 2 inches the night before, but they were predicting a nice day. It was just a fall, mountain snow. Well, the leaves were still all on the trees, so as we headed up, the leaves were just, the snow was dumping on us. So we were soaked that day. And that day, it was kind of funny, we got to the top of that mountain. It was one of the most beautiful, beautiful views. They call it Mount Isolation for a reason. You see no signs of life except for the towers on Mount Washington. Thank you. We got to the top, and we met these 2 fellas, and one, it was his 4,000 footer, and it was his hiking companion's first 4,000 footer. And they didn't bring a camera, so Jean to the rescue. So I took pictures for them and printed them off and sent them to him. I got a nice note back from him. That was a fun day.
You meet a lot of nice people.
We meet a lot of nice people. A lot of nice people, a lot of nice dogs. We do, though, we do. We meet a lot of nice dogs.
Have you ever stayed in any huts?
Nope, never did. We did an overnight at one of the days that we didn't make Mount Adams, and Tom cured me of hiking. I like a shower and bed and hot meal. I want none of this tenting and sleeping bags, and the next morning you're sore. I mean, you're tired and sore. It's like, no, that was no fun. I said, okay, I'm done with that. If we can't do it in a day, I'm not going. And I stuck to it.
Have you stayed in the AMC huts?
I never have, Roger. I visited all of them.
Yep.
Yep, and I've had soup at a couple, and yeah, but I've never stayed.
No.
No, like I said, I like soft bed, not those hard cots and sleeping bags.
I stayed in Madison.
You stayed at Madison? That's a beautiful hut. Beautiful, beautiful hut. There's some nice pictures of the Madison.
I stayed on top of Mount Washington.
Did you?
I didn't sleep at all because the wind howled all night long.
Yeah.
You couldn't
Yeah.
sleep. Yeah.
There's a lot of pretty pictures in here. If you have a minute, take a look through these. This was nice.
Well, any more questions? What a wonderful way to hike the mountain. Just like, look at the beautiful picture. We forgot to do it.